Well, I think all this is great, and I think we got a great view of the future. But who's going to pay for all this stuff? You know, in the sense, you'll need to spend billions of dollars laying networks and making it ubiquitous. You have all these big media companies making movies which are being shown on YouTube.
But if I could jump in, is this question, who's going to pay? Is when you think about who's going to pay, and you said billions of dollars, it's like, no, this whole idea of small things, little things happening, right? Letting people, you don't need a bulletproof 5 nines network in rural India, right? If every now and again you get dial tone, that's victory. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
But you still have, somebody has to lay this stuff, right?
But he made,
it's nice for Google to make lots of money on this, but what happens to those poor guys who make movies, or those poor telecom companies who lay broadband and all that?
You said poor guys who make movies. Show me one, all right? Oh, sorry, with the exception of the present companies from the film industry here who are hardworking professionals and artistes, all right?
Right. So first of all, I actually want to echo something Thornton said. So you talked about the billions of dollars on the network. Let me share one interesting example with you if I could. When YouTube first started, Google Video had already preceded it. Okay, so Google Video, it was conceived by our own engineers, and we started and we got going. And YouTube managed to surpass Google, and then of course we ended up buying them. And if you ask the engineers what they thought the critical difference was between YouTube and Google Video, it was actually that the Google Video engineers thought you had to optimize for quality. You had to have perfect bandwidth. You had to have a great user experience over the wires, right? And you need to have a substantial investment infrastructure. YouTube proved that fundamentally wrong, right? Because it gave people short-form video at actually grainy and not so good quality, right? But it was good enough. So first of all, I would submit, back to Thornton, that you don't actually need to make $1 billion investment in network. You need to experiment, right? And you need to be willing to put yourself at risk if you're an organization, if you're a user, if you're a creator. So I think I would submit that as point number one. I don't think it's any longer that to be in the game, you're going to have to spend $1 billion. You're going to have to lay the next fiber for the next 500 million homes, in order to get access to a monetization opportunity. So I take that as point number one. Number two, when you ask who's going to pay, well, currently, if there are producers of content, they are ultimately consumers. And there are a lot of people who wish to access those consumers at the right point or context where they're willing to receive a message. So I fundamentally do believe that advertising can play a role here. That's not to suggest it's the only business model.
Thornton, you haven't tried?
Well, no, I agree. Advertising is right now the dominant and best, if you will, revenue model. But there's also this idea of, and I'd love to talk to you about this later, is like this idea of co-creating value and then sharing that revenue stream. Because one of the real, and this is it's so fundamental to the future of India, I think, is this idea of the whole world works for you. All right, you don't have to buy, because we've got all this, and it's like in the American culture, we have these people called the Amish, who are wonderful people, very, very simple, but they are aggressive managers of technologies. And what they do is they do these things called Amish barn raisings, where everybody comes together and builds it together. So they build something of value for the community. I think we can do that. I think that's the next model.
Great. I think we have a lot of ideas now. I'd like to, since we're running short of time, if there are any questions from the audience for this exciting panel.
We killed him.
No, there's somebody out there who's still surviving.
In the previous session, we heard about Gutenberg and followed by Pawn and how to. I take how to as, in terms of the current session, I take how to as the Googleification of the net. There is a third pattern which we are seeing, which is, web trading platforms, which promote instinctive, irrational behavior, and they synchronize markets, and when this volatility, this synchronized volatility, has created a hell of a lot of trouble in the global context. The web, we feel, is a very, very big contributor to this. In India, we noticed, for example, in commodity markets, that I remember one particular incident where the price of salt went up to 65 rupees, that's $1.50 a kilo, because somebody spread a rumor. This is for 3 spectacular days. Somebody spread a rumor that there isn't going to be no salt in India. Okay, now the kind of instinctive reaction to irrational rumors that the web would promote would be one of the very, very big problems that the web will create as it gets more and more ubiquitous. Your comments?
Well, I think you're brilliant on picking up on that challenge, because one of the things that all these technologies do is they fundamentally change the risk, uncertainty and risk, as Dr. Sappho talked about. But the other thing it does is it forces us into the world that your amazing prime minister talked to us about, where no human is disposable. Because every individual who can walk the face of this planet, when we get to that point, as we ride this technology curve down there, is going to have dangerous technology. Technology that can change their life for the better, or technology that can change their life for the worse. And I think that we have to somehow reach to the point where we show that the advantages of using this amazing tool for the good are so much outweigh the dark side.
Great. Yeah.
So one additional comment. Your presumption is correct that the spreading of rumors on the internet, travels at light speed. But that presumes there's only one voice on the internet. And the reality is that in an environment where you have an opportunity for irrational information to be spread, you also have, more than ever before, an opportunity for 1,000 rational voices to be heard in an instant. So I think you can talk about the speed at which irrational information spreads, but let's also talk about the opportunity, once again, to be a participant in the process, and to engage in dialogue online. And so there are asynchronous pieces of information on the web, and they do have the opportunity to have massive impact. But as I said, it's not a one-voice medium, right?
Yeah,
It's a medium that can synchronize and
Somebody,
aggregate.
somebody out there? Yeah. Thank you.
My name Vineet Chaudhary, and if you permit me, the question is addressed to Nandan.
I'm not a futurist or a futurologist.
No, not
or
on this. In fact,
free media guy.
this question should have gone to Mr. Narayan Murthy in the previous session, but probably the chairperson was always looking that side.
Oh, okay.
Latency.
If you give me an opportunity, I'll ask that question.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. In the session before Mr. Murthy's session, there was a talk where people said that America is the real consumer in the world. And it's a net consumer, and the rest of the world is actually producing and goods and services, and America is consuming. So the entire global economic balance is pivoted around America's consumption. My question here is focused to the core strength in our country's economy today, which is the IT sector. The largest revenue contributor to service sector in India. And major portion of this revenue comes from the US. So if this is actually true, do you see it as a threat in future for revenues to India through the IT sector? One. Two, like China has based its manufacturing base not on international exports, but on its domestic markets first, and then exports, is India and the IT sector in India seeing or doing anything about it? Because I know the revenues in the Indian IT sector model coming from India are very, very meager. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think, first of all, I think the point that I think that was being made was that the US is a huge consumer. It runs a trade deficit of 7 to 8% of GDP. That's $800 billion. And therefore, if the US slows down, then it does have economic consequences for all countries in the world. So I think that's a generally accepted proposition. And if there's a slowdown, it'll affect every industry, no matter what it is, including the IT industry. I think on the second point, I think while the revenue of Indian IT companies in India is not much, we are already seeing in India the benefits of technology in a wide number of applications. We have talked about the mobile phone revolution here. We know what's happened to our stock exchanges, which have become completely modernized using technology. Our entire voting system is based on electronic voting. Our banking system is highly online and automated. All our reservations on our airlines and railway stations is all on technology. So I think while we have not necessarily had a lot of revenue from here, I think when you look at the applications that use technology in India, they're very profound, and they change a lot of lives in India today. So I think there is the technology revolution is it affecting India too, not necessarily in revenue terms, but in terms of impact. So I think that is definitely happening. So maybe I think we need to wrap up, but I think we'll take one more question from somebody on this side because, or everybody's bludgeoned. Yeah, I think there's a gentleman back at the back who want.
Hi, my name is Graham Waters, New Zealand High Commissioner. As you're going to hear from Sir Richard Hadley tonight, we New Zealanders like to do a lot of running around. My worry about all these technological projections is that everybody's going to do a lot of sitting around, that it's very sedentary sitting in front of a PC and not a healthy lifestyle. And it seems to me there's a big issue about whether future generations are going to be rather less fit than their predecessors and a lot less good at sport. So maybe the technology will change and people can be sort of do things standing up and walking around instead of sitting down, but I'd be interested to hear what you think the projections are on that front.
Super. Well, tomorrow, I presume I don't want to steal any of Juan Enriquez's, because down the road, I think that exercise, you're going to be able to take a pill and you'll be exercising. I'm going to do my sit-up pill or something like that. So there are amazing things going on in biotechnology. But never mind. I'll go ahead.
Yeah. Sukhinder, you want to add to that?
So first of all, unfortunately, I think there is already a lot of computing going on standing up. It's on your BlackBerry while you're happening to walk down the hallways. I don't know about any of you, but I'm unfortunately attempting to do both, and it's not being very successful. To be honest, I actually share your concern. I think that there is no question that one of the risks of technology is it can absolutely consume your time. And the only strategy I have for it is segment your life. You've got to switch off your BlackBerry. You've got to switch off email. You've got to go on a vacation with your family and take a break. Otherwise, it's coming at you all the time.
Of course, now there's a class of video games called active video games. So while you play the video game, you exercise. So maybe that will help solve some of that. But no, I think we need to come to the end of this session. So because we have a lot of other things happening, and I'm sure Sanjay picked up a lot for the India Group's digital strategy in this session. And those of you who are not watching the match tonight can find out where the hell is Matt. So with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you very much.